Welcome to Session 4, Client Satisfaction, How to Run a Perfect Consulting Session. This is a very critical step, and here's why. A consulting business doesn't grow because you're able to chase down more leads and do more cold emailing. It grows because your clients love your services so much that they go out and tell other people how great you are. This hopefully creates a chain reaction where more people start coming to you than you can handle, and when people come to you based on the referral of former clients, these are known as hot leads, meaning that a former client has referred you to another person and that person comes to you asking if they can purchase your services. But in order for them to recommend you, you have to run a great consulting session. You need to do this over and over again, and you need to leave your client satisfied. We're going to talk about exactly how to do that. We'll talk about the different ways to run a consulting session, how to get clients to recommend you to others and how to help them do that, the most effective way to manage your business, and how to set up contracts and make expectations clear between you and your client so there aren't any misunderstandings that can create problems down the road. There are two different major types of consultants. There isn't one approach. You have to calibrate your teaching according to the needs of your client, according to their industry, and according to what problems they're facing. And you choose a model that creates the best results for them. Let's break down what it is before we talk about how to lead a consulting session, because you lead it based on which approach you use. There are two different types. There are coaches and strategists. They provide information in different ways in order to create measurable results for clients, because that's the reason they're coming to you. They're not getting consulting just for the sake of consulting. They're getting consulting because they want specific results. Coaches provide process-based coaching. Coaching is process-based, not product-based. Coaches work through a problem with a client. They typically offer this in the form of one-on-one discussions, whether through Skype or sitting down with them, and they actively listen to a client to help them arrive at a solution. They don't just give them an information dump, but they help them use the knowledge they already have and lead them on the path to arriving at their solution. This will help lead them to the solution, understand what barriers to overcome, and put together an action plan in order to overcome their problems. Let's say your consulting business is based on publishing consulting like mine. You help people produce a book. This type of approach, coaching, is useful when people are in their early stages and they're trying to figure out, how do I write this book? What is the message I'm trying to get across? How do I articulate my vision? How do I break it down into chapters that are good for readers to digest? In order to help them figure these things out, this is where a coaching model works really well. What you're doing is looking at ways to help solve your clients' problems in these sessions. A strategist is a little bit different. It's product-based. Strategists focus on a product, not a process. In a product-based business, you are delivering a product at the end, such as a speech, an edited dissertation, a book, or a translation. In this model, you don't have to talk with your clients very much. Let's say your business model is freelance academic translation. In that case, you need very, very little one-on-one time with your client. They give you a document, you translate it, you give it back to them, and that's it. There's really not much to discuss. A strategist is there to plan with you. They are there to deliver a product, so if you bring information to them, they will help you plan it out and strategize and take that information and put it into a package. They can help with the plan by taking all the best information and getting the best mix of that information. They can also put together custom plans. Does a business need help with economic forecasting, understanding free trade agreements? Does a university student need a customized curriculum put together for them? A strategist provides a written plan for somebody, but this could also take the form of one-on-one coaching as well. There's not a one-size-fits-all model, but you customize it according to the needs of your client. The main point of a consultant is to provide change, whether you're a coach or a strategist. Your client is at point A, and you want to bring them to point B. You are bringing a change to them, but it's more than that. Anything in life can produce change. If you wait 2 or 3 hours, you're hungry, and that is a change in your life. Beyond change, you're giving them progress. All progress takes committed, focused action at a high level of energy. You want to produce positive change by engaging in a process in a specific framework. Give these results to clients, and they know you can produce tremendous value. First, let's look at the approach that a coach would do in providing help to their client. The way that they do this are typically through coaching calls or coaching sessions, and let's look exactly how you can structure one of these if you decide to go with this approach. So you have your client, they have purchased time with you for a one-on-one session, or maybe they've purchased a package of 5 or 10 coaching sessions. Great. How do you structure your call? We're going to structure a coaching call that is very simple. The most important thing is to clarify the agenda before you start the session so you know what results your client wants. The worst thing to do is to stumble into the call without a plan. You want to set expectations right away about what you will discuss, and you can do that by asking the very simple question, what do you want to discuss today? This is something that is very important on the first call, but also is a great way to start subsequent calls. But let's look at that first call. Let's look at that first Skype appointment with your client if you're offering coaching services. What do you do? Here's a great way to start. The first thing is to get to know them. Let them tell you about them. Let them describe where they are, why they're having problems, why they haven't been able to be successful, and how they would like to go forward. When you hear something that you sincerely appreciate, a good way to begin to develop rapport is to compliment them. Tell them, that's great that you're doing that because not many people are doing that. That's a good way to begin the process of building trust between you and a client, because no matter what you're doing, even if you feel like there's not a lot of emotion involved, there is a basic level of trust that needs to be built up because people are coming to you, they're admitting they have problems, they're admitting they need help, and there's a certain level of vulnerability there. So that's a critical step. And let them go on as long as they need here. The next step is to get their goals. Understand their goals so that you can understand what sort of value you can provide them. Find goals that are really going to take some coaching to get there so you can know that your coaching will be valuable. Third, set some initial actions and commitments if appropriate. Get them on the road to their goals. The best thing you can do is convince them to take action so they can get to the next level, particularly something that produces results very fast. This is critical here, that you give them goals that aren't so difficult that they're beyond their grasp, but something that can motivate them because they can see quick results, and it will give them the motivation and energy to take those harder steps. Let me explain this in a little bit more detail. I want to discuss a principle. It comes from economics called the Pareto Principle from Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist. He devised something called the 80-20 rule. This means that 80% of the results come from 20% of the action. As you can see from that graphic there, 20% of your time will focus on a few vital tasks that produce 80% of the results. And if we're honest, a lot of our time is wasted in the day, and 80% of our time is on trivial tasks that only produce 20% of the results. You want to call them to action and give them homework that is focused on that highly effective 20% that produces 80% of the results. At the end of your first call with a client, give them some homework, but then make this homework a small action that produces massive change in their lives. People on the internet call these life hacks. So do something small that makes a big change. The advantage of giving them something like this is that if it's small enough, they are very likely to do it. And when they see that it produces such a big change, they will see that your advice is valuable, and they'll keep listening to you, they'll keep coming back, and they'll follow your advice because they know it's putting them on the road they want to go on, and it's putting them on the road that will lead to their desired change. Let me give you an example that comes from health and fitness. Tim Ferriss is an author who's written 2 best-selling books, The 4-Hour Workweek and The 4-Hour Body. For online business, I highly recommend The 4-Hour Workweek. But because he wrote The 4-Hour Body, which is a health book, he's been asked health advice by a lot of people. Sometimes people will come to him who are over 100 pounds overweight and ask him how to get down to less than 10% body fat, which is a big goal. Here's what he said he would advise them. The wrong way to go about this would be to say, Okay, here are the 20 things you have to do. First, you need to exercise 30 minutes a day, do a mix of cardio and weight resistance. Then you need to do a complete detox and eat only vegetables for a week. Then you need to keep your daily calorie count under 1,500 for 2 months. If you give all these things to someone, it's almost guaranteed they're not going to follow through because that's overwhelming. They think, I don't know how to do those things. I don't know what cardio and weight resistance are. I can't do that. That's not for me. He doesn't say that. Instead, he says this: I just need you to do 2 things. First, when you wake up in the morning, eat some protein, maybe an egg or 2, maybe some beans. And then for every meal throughout the day, make sure to have a handful of leafy greens with whatever you eat. That's it. If you do those 2 things, you can eat 10 cartons of Chunky Monkey ice cream after that, and that's fine. Now, if people are eating the handful of leafy greens, they won't eat the Chunky Monkey ice cream because they'll be filled up. But the point is, people see that by just doing these 2 things, they're starting to lose weight. And they have that early boost of confidence that it is actually possible for them to succeed. And that will allow them to take further baby steps of starting to exercise just a little bit, changing their diet just a little bit. So by giving them early actions that produce results, that creates the motivation for them to keep going. Here's an example of how I did that when I was an online English teacher. I worked for a year teaching English to Japanese business professionals on Skype. I realized that learning a foreign language is daunting. I've learned that myself, learning Turkish, and it can feel like a never-ending task. You spend years doing it. Many of us spent 4 years in high school learning Spanish or French and didn't come away with it with very much. And you think to yourself, this will never end. I can't do it. What I do to motivate my students on the first lesson is this. I would tell them in the beginning, after we exchange introductions, is spend 2 minutes describing yourself to me. Basic information, who you are, where you live, where you work, your family, your hobbies, etc. I would type down what they say and then edit it into perfect English. Then I would create a PDF or whatever and send it to them and tell them, memorize this word for word. This is a self-description. Even if you don't understand the grammar, that's fine. Just memorize it. They would memorize it, and they would find out that this simple statement about yourself took care of 80% of any life situation they would ever encounter. If you think about what you do in your daily life, in most situations in life, you're not using your full arsenal of language. You're not getting into complex descriptions when you're just doing small talk with somebody or meeting someone at a cocktail party. You're saying some pretty basic stuff and you're saying it over and over again. When my students memorized this, they realized, wow, suddenly I'm completely fluent in a lot of life situations. And they would get really excited thinking, this has actionable results in my life. And that would give them the motivation to learn the hard stuff like future perfect progressive tense or writing a long essay or conducting a business call. Because they had that early injection of enthusiasm, that helped them do the harder stuff later. So I recommend giving them an 80-20 assignment very early in your coaching. What do you do with ongoing calls? Here is how you can structure calls, how you can prepare with your client beforehand. First, prepare, look at the last session and see their commitments, see the homework you gave them. Get set up so you don't need to ramp up. Then you have an update when you talk with them. Listen to them on what has happened. Accountability on their commitments. Hold them accountable on stuff they haven't done. Make sure that they follow up on the things you told them to do, because if they don't do it, they're not going to improve. Then focus on results. Ask, what result do you want in this session today? Don't say, what do you want to talk about or work on, but ask, what result do you want from me? Their end result is not a conversation partner. Again, that's not why people get consultants. They get consultants for results. So always focus on that. You're there to help produce results and let them dictate. Of course, you come to the lesson with a plan, but you also want to be flexible on how you do it. And I'm going to show you in a few slides how you can prepare for the lesson and prepare a few bullet points, but also maintain enough flexibility that the needs of the client can dictate where it goes. Then have them commit to new actions at the end of your session. Finally, the last thing you do on the call is you celebrate. You ask them about their wins, ask them about their accomplishments, and ask them what was the most valuable part of this call. You want to give them dessert after dinner. Make them feel good at the end of the call because that is what they will remember and that's what will stick with them. People remember the last part of the engagement, so leave it on a high note so that they feel good about it, they feel motivated to do what you gave them, and that will give them a good feeling that will cause them to want to keep coming back. I want to mention something that will come up in the course of your coaching calls, and I want to mention a technique on how to deal with it. No matter what, if you talk to clients, at any point you're going to feel like you're playing the role of a psychologist. Even if the coaching that you offer is the most straightforward, non-emotional thing possible, you're getting into a little bit of psychology because you're dealing with people who, for whatever reason, aren't taking action. They know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it. They're not following through for whatever reason. And you need to help them. You need to jolt them into action. I want to mention how that looks. This technique comes from Jeffrey Suey, who's a life coach, who does a lot to help people with personal issues. When you first start working with a client, they expect to be treated the way everyone else does. They expect that when they mention their problems to coworkers or other people, usually people will just flatter them and say, "Oh, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing great. It's the other person's fault." People talk about problems but never expect follow-up or anyone to push them. Well, the jolt technique is to interrupt this pattern of your client. The first thing you want to do is the Me Too approach. You can't jolt your client into action right away. You have to continue to build up rapport. When a client shares a problem, you want to listen as much as possible. You want to compliment them and say, "I want to commend you about your honesty here because most people aren't honest about this problem. Can you tell me what has allowed you to be honest about this problem?" If you notice what I'm doing here, I'm doing a couple things. First, I state my appreciation. I commend you for your honesty here. And then I use the word because I'm justifying my compliment. I commend you about your honesty here because most people aren't honest about this. Then I ask them a question about the compliment to show a level of interest. Can you tell me what has allowed you to be honest about this problem? Can you tell me why you're being upfront about why you're struggling in this issue? And this will develop a deeper level of rapport. Now here's where the jolt technique comes in and speaking honestly. This is where you tell them what is on your mind. You tell them what is on your mind and you don't want to edit anything. Say, "Bob, I commend you for your honesty, and I want to be clear here. Your business is a mess. Your undergraduate studies is a mess. Your dissertation is a mess. And there are things that you could be doing here to make it better, and you know you should be doing it, but you aren't doing anything. It looks to me you're either being lazy or you're just afraid to do what you need to do." So here you bring out some tough truths. You're telling them exactly what you see. Maybe some people might be nervous that that could be off-putting to a client and they won't want to come back. Well, deep down inside, if a person actually goes to a consultant and gets consulting, they know that they are doing something wrong. They know that they lack knowledge in something, and they're seeking someone to help them find the answer and shoot straight with them. They don't want someone who will just flatter them and tell them they're doing everything right. If they really believed they were doing everything right, they wouldn't have hired a consultant in the first place. Speaking honestly can jolt them from their current path, and you can be direct in a way you wouldn't be normally with others. And you want to wrap up the statement with whatever has the most teeth. Like, it seems like, "Bob, you're just operating out of fear here. That's all you're doing. You're operating out of fear. You know what you need to do, but you're not taking the action." They're thinking, this is something new. I haven't heard this. I haven't heard someone speak directly to me like this. I need to listen. Now, what you do to wrap up, of course, you're direct, but you're direct for a reason. And the reason is that you want to associate the wrong action with a pain and the right action with a pleasure. It's like carrots and sticks. You need to get back into rapport and associate massive pain with staying where they are and pleasure associated with the change they need to make. The best way to do this is to start asking questions like, how does it feel to know that things aren't going well in your business or your PhD program? How would it feel if it kept going like this for a year? How would it be if it went on for 5 years if you didn't change? And see how they begin to understand that they could be messing up their business, they could be messing up their academic career if they don't change this thing that they're doing. So you're associating a negative emotion with where they currently are, And then you want to bring them into the carrots, the pleasure. Say, if you started doing the work you knew you wanted to do, if you made the change you knew you needed to make, even if you didn't get the results right away, how would you feel then? Where would you be after 6 months, a year, or 5 years? How would you feel? They'll realize that there is pain that comes with not changing and pleasure in changing. So if you can get them to feel that pain about not changing and the pleasure with changing, then they're ready for the final step, and that is committing to an actionable goal. When they're ready to change, have them commit to a major action and go take those actions immediately. This will get them to go and do it because they clearly understand what they have to do to go out and make those changes. So this is how you can be a good, unofficial psychologist to your client when you can tell their problem isn't a lack of information, but they just need motivation. Let's talk a little bit more about how to prepare beforehand and structure your coaching call. You need to work out the right questions and approaches for individual clients. There are common questions and approaches for any coaching client that you should know. You need to understand how to elicit goals from clients. You need to understand what challenges and problems there are. You need to be able to pinpoint the exact issues and discuss the questions to get them there. In order to do this, you need to know what questions to be asking. This is the most important thing that happens in the session. Questions is what it's all about. Questions are what create dialogue. You need to know a bunch of great questions to ask, and you need to improve them over time. Ask the right questions and the best questions as quickly as possible to get to the bottom of something as quickly as possible. Another thing too, sometimes coaches when they first start out are worried about being wrong. They're worried about making an assumption that it's incorrect. You say, Bob, is this the thing that's happening in your business if I understand correctly? And they might say, no, that's not really what's happening at all. Don't worry. You might worry that they'll think you're incompetent if you make a wrong assumption, but it's okay to be wrong. It's a matter of talking to your client and giving them the wrong answer. And if your client tells you your answer is wrong, this will give you a clue about what the right answer is. You can be upfront with them at the beginning and say that there are a lot of solutions to a problem. And if you see a solution doesn't work, then tell them to tell you, because that will give the clues as to what will work. And as soon as the two of you figure it out, then you can figure out the right impetus to affect change. This is the most important first question. Even though you have done some pre-planning for what will happen during this session, even though you've prepared, you need to ask them, what would you like to focus on during our session? You'd be surprised by how many coaches that don't ask this question. This is a question that best serves the client while also being a question that best serves you. It asks people what they want, and then you can give it to them, and then you'll see your retention rates improve. This question is asking what someone would like to focus on. If someone answers this question by saying, well, I've been having issues with such and such, and then they launch into a big story, take a moment to clarify. Ask, so what would you like to focus on over the next hour regarding such and such? Because if they tell you about a factual statement, you need to pinpoint what is the issue behind that. Ask them upfront in the beginning in order that you can focus on the root issue. Here are some other valuable questions that you can ask during your session. What small steps can you take to get closer to your vision in order to break things down for them? What is holding you back? What is the thing that is preventing them from reaching that goal? And this is where you can challenge them and jolt them to action if appropriate. This third one, what do you make of that? I love this question. When I worked as a journalist, this was one of my favorite questions. What does this mean? Well, let's say somebody tells something to you, and to them it's very significant, but you have no idea why it's significant. They'll say something to you like, I was working as an adjunct instructor, and then my supervisor came in and they said to me, well, we better look at our evaluations. And that's important to them, but you don't know why that's important. And rather than just saying, I don't understand, can you explain that? Ask them, what do you make of that? What do you make of that? When I was a journalist and people would say, we were having problems with the Longshore Union because we heard from our supervisor that China canceled the contract. And I didn't really know what that meant with a longshoreman union worker. So I would say, what do you make of that? Then they'll unpack what it is and they'll unpack the significant thing, and you can get into root issues a lot better. The fourth is, what am I not asking you that you want me to ask you? They might have something in the back of their head that they want to discuss. So let them dictate it. Let them get to what they want to discuss. And if they answer honestly, you can't lose. There are a lot of other questions you can ask, and I included a PDF in the resources section of this session that includes a list of 25 questions that you can bring up during a consulting session that will help keep the ball rolling. Let's discuss furthermore how to gain the trust of your clients. How do you convince your clients that your coaching works? The way you do this is you first deliver results in a free session, and you develop a list of magic bullets. Magic bullets are actionable things that you have them do that follow the 80-20 rule. They are things that you can teach someone in 5 to 10 minutes that will give them instantaneous results. It may not give them the whole solution, and it won't, because if you can just do that in a free session, then your consulting business idea is built on shaky premises, but it will give them something that can start to make small incremental changes in their business. Have a list of several of these magic bullets. Include at least one of these in each client coaching session. Deliver that in a free report or a video. Another thing is to give them homework and action steps each lesson. They have a reason to keep coming back to you, and they have a way to grow and improve their business over time. And the third thing is to create a custom curriculum to give them direction during consulting. You'll come across the same issues with your clients. In order to streamline the process of making session planning as easy as possible, usually I create a package of 5 to 10 different types of things that I could discuss during a coaching session. But then I calibrate it and cater it to each student. And if they want to discuss something that's outside of my 5 to 10 prepackaged consultation things, then I'll build something around that. Usually on my website, on the services section, I'll mention a list of things that we can discuss during a coaching session. During the free consultation or during the first thing, I'll go with them about what are specific things they would like to go over. And if they say, ooh, I want to talk about these 4 to 7 things, then you know a much better way how to structure your coaching session and how to bring up certain issues with them. Let me give you an example of something you could put on your website, on your services section, of the different type of sampler sessions that you could offer with a client. In brackets, I put the magic bullet. Don't put that on your site, but it's something for your own reference so that when you're talking with them, you have something to give to them that's highly actionable, that they can quickly see results. They'll be excited at the results they saw, and they'll want to come back to you. I could talk about, for my publishing consulting business, the first one is how to finish a book. And my magic bullet is, this is how you finish your manuscript. Here's a specific writing strategy you can use where you write 500 words a day, and here's a document I use to keep track of my writing progress, and it's been great for me on getting my writing going. The second session could be how to format your book for Amazon. The magic bullet is using Fiverr, that website I showed you in the last section, where you get people to do things for you for $5, and there are people who will format a book for Amazon for $5. Third, how to create a web presence, and my magic bullet is showing them specifically how to use Facebook groups to your full advantage, how to get involved with them, how to create your own Facebook group page, and utilizing Facebook to the fullest of your ability. The fourth session, book launch. My magic bullet are paid author email list. I'll say, if you go to BookBub, you can pay to be on a list that will go to hundreds of thousands of readers. That will put your book in front of a lot of people, and that will get your book launch going very well. And my last thing on my website of the sampler list could be book exposure, session 5. My magic bullet is, how do you get 10 reviews? You have to get reviews on your Amazon sales page for people to buy your book. One way to do it is to give out free review editions to fans or readers or friends and family. And that's a way to get those early reviews that will get you the book exposure you need. Let me break down how a specific session would go based on one of the examples I gave. Let's say from my consulting session package, I'm going to talk with a client about how to launch a book. How would I plan that session? This is how I would plan it before I talk to them. And remember, keep in mind that you want to alter it according to the needs of your client so that they can get what they want out of it. These are the exact steps that I would use. I would get into common problems, how to get reviews when launching a book, how to overcome these problems. I'd say do review swaps or review books for other people and they'll review your book. Mention the best resources to use, such as the BookBub email list, and give them action steps. Tell them to do these things by next week. In the course of this, of course, I am sprinkling lots and lots of questions during this time. This is just a prep list, and you want to combine this prep list with questions to ask. There will be times that I'll do an information dump and I'll explain things to a client. Other times I'll ask them questions when I can tell that they know what they need to do. They just need to connect the two dots themselves. Having your client connect the dots themselves versus you just saying it is always better, because when they connect it themselves, they're involved more actively mentally in the process. Here are just a couple of things that I would do in order to prepare. So that's on the list right there of ways that I would prepare for that session. Let's get an idea about how this would work with a thesis consultation session. In the last session, I mentioned Margie Thomas Horton, who runs the website scholarshape.com, and she has a great funnel on her website for getting clients and offering them a free session and describing her services. I discussed with her about how she runs her consulting sessions, her coaching sessions, because she sits down one-on-one, whether in person or with Skype, and helps MAs and PhDs in their dissertation writing. Here's what she said. In a session with scholars, she doesn't bother with nitty-gritty like grammar and a specific consultation. Before the session, she will know the client's needs and pain point because she has set an objective for the session. They both have homework for the session. Maybe they will talk about one chapter in the dissertation. They know what they will discuss, maybe not the particulars, but they know they're talking about a book chapter and they know the goal, where they need to make the argument unfold in a clear way and structure it accordingly. They'll talk through that. The client will explain some of the specific problems, and in the process of the client explaining the problems, it will clarify what's going on in his or her mind. Consultation time is spent trying to figure out what the client is trying to say, what are the components of what they're trying to say, and what order they go in and how it is articulated. Margie can do this a few ways. Maybe she's with them in person. Maybe they're on Skype, and Skype has a function where you can share documents and look at the same document on the screen. Google Hangouts also have this, kind of like what we're doing here. You see my PowerPoint presentation. You can do that where you both see the same document and are discussing it as you go. In this time, you want to do more question asking than instructing because they're more powerful. Ask good questions to them unless you are giving them an information dump, because your clients are smart people and they don't need information as much as they need help processing. In this time, Margie said, you're giving them a structure. Because you know the field, you have a specific picture of how academic writing can look that is widely accepted. There is a place for you to say that your client needs to write something in a certain way. You can help a client understand reader expectations, but even to communicate that you want that, you can use questions. Not fake rhetorical questions, but questions that put your finger on the client's work or genre expectation. You can also calibrate this according to the needs of a specific client. Sometimes, let's say you realize that the problem will be solved if we flip order 2 and 3. Some, you might say outright, I'm looking at 2 and I'm looking at 3 and we should flip them. Others, you can tell that they're much closer to figuring out the solution and you could say, well, I'm looking at 2 and I'm looking at 3, and they might realize you need to change it. You have to have intuition to guess what your client's needs. And this intuition can come from experience as you talk to more clients and know what each particular personality needs and how to work best with them. One of the best ways to improve is to be a listener. I found something very interesting in a book called How Doctors Think, and it says that most doctors, within the first 18 seconds of seeing a patient, will interrupt the patient telling their story and generate an idea in his or her mind of what's wrong. And too often, they make what's called an anchoring mistake. They fix on that snap judgment and don't change it even in the face of contradictory information. The book found that a doctor who will listen to a patient for 10 minutes and talks for 1 is far more effective than a doctor who listens for 30 seconds and then prattles on with medical and health advice for 9 minutes and 30 seconds. When a doctor listens, they are giving you the exact information that you need. In any consultation session, there are 10,000 different things that you could say. But a client hires you to say the right thing at the right moment. And in order to do that successfully, you need to listen. For coaches, you can be a coach in a one-on-one setting or a team setting. 80% of coaches are great at one type of coaching. Some can do both, but others prefer different things. Some are great about pushing people into action, imagining like a drill sergeant or a football coach. Others are great in settings where they operate more as the counselor or they help people get their specific problems out. The point is that you can do group or one-on-one coaching based on whatever is better for your business and whatever is better for your clients. It's not as if some people are thinking, well, I'm not getting my money's worth if I'm doing group coaching instead of one-on-one. You can offer both and just charge differently according to them. But some people honestly like the dynamic of being in a group of people who are at the same level they are and can talk about these issues as they go along. Dora Farkash, who runs Finish Your Thesis, doesn't work one-on-one with clients. She works with groups of students who are focusing on finishing their thesis. She also has a private Facebook group where people who are experiencing problems can talk with other people. Dora will hop in there once in a while to address things, but a lot of times the students love to be able to hash things out with others too. So group coaching can be effective in its own way, and it doesn't have to work against one-on-one, but it can complement it, and there might be people who prefer one over the other. Some people are better as group teachers. Great public speakers and motivators can make you feel like they're talking directly to you, even though they're talking to a stadium. This is true of great politicians in history, or religious leaders, or motivational speakers like the Tony Robbins of the world. I don't know the aspects of crowd psychology, but it is a real phenomenon, and if you harness it well, maybe team coaching is for you. In order to wrap up the coaching session, you need to give your client something to take with them. Give them maybe a one-page PDF that includes a summary of the things you talked about, including bullet points, and a paragraph description advising them on what to do next. Also include some homework. These can be fill-in-the-blank sheets that help them work out the issues that you discussed. Much like the materials that I give you at the end of each session, maybe it's a checklist, maybe it's a fill-in-the-blank thing or homework for the next session, something along those lines will help keep your clients engaged and keep them wanting to come back to you because they can feel the progress happening. We dug deep into being a coach, offering coaching for your consultation. What if your business is better suited to being a strategist, being a product-based business? A strategist has an end-to-end understanding of a business and can identify where the leaks are in your new business setup. They can quickly gauge your market and will put together a plan for you, or they will produce a specific bit of content that you are seeking. Knowledgeable strategists should be able to design a roadmap that addresses immediate needs as well as long-term goals, with plans to integrate new initiatives into the current business model to ensure a successful mix of technology, processes, and people. The main strategy that helps clients get the most out of a strategic session or consulting sessions or group training is to first find out what their needs are, of course. That can come in maybe a one-on-one session that you do have with them. Afterward, one specific tactic entails the use of an interactive template that you could design that could be customized to the client's specific business, and you could also demonstrate how your analytical methods will prove beneficial. It's important to note that a strategist session goes beyond advice telling and knowledge development, but shows them preliminary results that clients can use and build upon. Let me break down how that can work in different types of product-based businesses. My example is michaelrank.net, my publishing consulting site. Michael Rank is my pen name. You can see there on the left and right side of the screen the different services that I offer. Marketing services for books or done-for-you book service. In my marketing services, I have 4 different things that they can purchase: Amazon Visibility Program, email marketing campaign, author online branding package, or author website setup. On those pages, I describe exactly what it is I'm offering to them. I don't need to have a sit down with my clients to deliver it to them. Maybe they don't want to sit down. Maybe they just want me to do the work for them or build something or a product for them. I do it, they pay for me, and then I show them what I delivered to them. Maybe I'll include a PDF document writing up a description of how it's useful, how to best use it, and how to go forward with it. On the right side of the screen, this is my Done For You book service. Let's say a person comes to me at whatever stage in their book writing process. Maybe they haven't started, maybe they have a manuscript that needs editing, maybe they have a complete manuscript. I can offer packages based on different levels of where they are. Maybe they want me to do the whole thing for them and I just have to interview them, take the notes of the interview, edit that manuscript, turn it into a book, and then market the book. Maybe they just want marketing, maybe they just want help with certain ideas. So with my Done For You book service, I can do both coaching. Perhaps they need help discussing how to produce their book, or I could do product-based services and strategy in which I just implement whatever it is they want to do. They want me to market the book. They want me to format the book, whatever that is. This is a closer look at how my services page look. If you were to click on Amazon Visibility Program or Email Marketing Campaign, all I have is one paragraph describing what it is. I get very specific about what it includes, but I don't have to go on for pages and pages. It's good to get right to the facts. On the bottom there, I have the buy button and then a questions where they can contact me. If someone does have follow-up questions, they can get a hold of me and get more into what it all means. That is a way that you can advertise the products that you are selling, and that level of information is completely acceptable. Let me show you one more example of a product-based business. This comes from the website of T-Lane Scales. She is a PhD that offers coaching and consultation for the faculty teacher. Notice here that she does a mix of product and process-based consulting. She does both coaching and strategy. Let's look at one of those packages. These are 3 different packages. If we go to the middle column, you can see if you are writing your statement of teaching philosophy, which is good for an educator, it says try this package, Teaching Philosophy Statement Development. The process is receive prompts and samples from Lane and develop your draft. Lane reviews the draft, 500 words, that the client writes. In a 50-minute session, you discuss the draft. Finally, Lane provides written feedback on your revised version. Schedule 2 hours on Lane's calendar. As you can see, the client writes something, Lane edits it, and then she discusses it with the client. It's a mixture of both a process and a product. Processes and products, coaching and strategy are not mutually exclusive at all. It's rare that there's only one pure form of one or the other. These can integrate together and work together. As you can see from this webpage, as you can see from mymichaelrank.net, you can mix and match these according to whatever best serves your client. I do want to mention a pitfall to avoid when you're doing a product-based business consulting. Product-based consulting, you have to be aware of dependencies. Make sure you are not too dependent on your client producing information. If you're dependent on them doing each of the steps of your consulting, then you can get hung up. Then you can spend weeks or months waiting for them. Anytime you're dependent on them to produce a piece you need is something that can slow you down because you're dependent on them for your time, and your time is your most valuable resource as a consultant. For example, let's say I'm doing PhD publishing. Somebody comes to me and says, I want to go out and do the interviews for my book. Okay, that's great, but what if it takes them 2 months to do it? What if they don't do it and you're just sitting there waiting and you're caught in flux? You're waiting for them to deliver something. You need to take your client out of the equation as much as possible. Perhaps say, I will begin the contract as soon as you give me that information. Then I can go out and work with all that. I can work on my schedule and I will deliver this to you. You can talk with the client in the process of this. You can schedule discussion times. But if you make it too dependent on them, it can mess up the whole process. If your job is dissertation consulting or dissertation editing, you can do it as fast as you want. The point being that time is your most valuable resource as a consultant, and you must guard it carefully. I want to discuss a little bit more about how businesses can combine coaching and strategy. In my book publishing business, I can both sit down with people to discuss their book manuscript and also do the writing, editing, and marketing. These 2 things are not in opposition. Sometimes the gig can be process-based. A person wants to sit down for a few hours to help understand what it is they should write about, how to structure it, how to make the table of contents, and how to zero in on the message the best way possible. And in order to discover that, that requires talking with them, and that takes a few hours of talking. Other times, a consultant might just want me to market their book. But really, in order to successfully publish a book, there has to be a component of talking with the author. There are a lot of book ghostwriting services out there where people will spend tens of thousands of dollars to have a company or an author ghostwrite a book for them. But when they don't talk out what they want the book to be, a lot of times they'll get the book and they hate it because they didn't discuss it beforehand with the writer and the book doesn't have the right message. If the consulting business had a process piece at the beginning where you talk things out with the client, that would have helped the product business where you're creating the product for them. Sometimes clients will take one or the other. Maybe they'll start only wanting a product and they'll add process things. Maybe they'll start only wanting a process and they'll want you to create a product for them. Offer different services. Be flexible. In the course of your session, you can mention to your client that it sounds like you want this. This goes beyond the scope of our coaching sessions, but if you want that, you can purchase this as well. Feel free to mention that. They might very well want that because it will give them what it is they need. Maybe they didn't know what they needed when they first signed up with you, and you can help them along this way. We've talked about how to run a good session. Now we're going to talk about how to get clients to recommend you to other people. This is the thing that will grow your business. This is the thing that will fill out your schedule and put you in such high demand that you have to turn people away. Once you get to this point, you don't have to worry about marketing. You don't have to worry about finding clients. This is the point we want to get to where you're so in demand that you can focus exclusively on your work. And you do this by getting your clients to recommend you to others, and your clients are your best salesmen. Let's say you want to buy something on Amazon. What do you look for? If you want to buy a new shoe, do you go to that shoes company's website? Probably not, because you know they're trying to pitch and sell to you. Or do you look at reviews? If you see a lot of honest reviews that are written really well, that's far more convincing to me than the sales page of the company's website. In that same way, your clients are the best sales channel you have, and you need to know how to harness that effectively. The first thing you do is that you have to make sure that your clients had a great experience. You've probably heard that people are more likely to complain about a service than they are to say something positive. While this may be true, if you ensure that your clients are happy, this will increase the likelihood that they will share a positive message about you. It's unrealistic to believe that everything will go smoothly all the time and that everyone will love you, because you're only human and we don't click with everyone. But if you can address your clients' problems, that will make them happy. And if you do that, and if you over-deliver on your promises, and they get more out of the experience than they thought they would get going in, they are perfectly primed to be your best referral. How do you get them to refer you to other people? It's actually quite simple, but it's utilizing methods that people don't realize because they have this idea that it's wrong or it's weird or whatever, but that's not the case, and I'll explain why. First, let your clients know you want referrals. That's very simple. Your happy customers and satisfied clients want to give you referrals. They want to help their friends and contacts who are struggling with the same problems find the same success that they had. But sometimes they may think you don't need referrals, surprise, surprise, because it just never occurred to them, or they aren't sure how to refer people to you, or they aren't sure what would be the best way to refer them to you. You can help them out in this way. Reach out to your clients and customers, share with them your ideal client profile. This could be on your About page, this could be your UMP, and ask them if they know anyone who fits that description and who would benefit from working with you. You don't ever want to beg for referrals. It's beneficial to be proactive about getting referrals. Don't be afraid to ask. In fact, you should make this a part of your sales process. Once you've delivered your service and made sure that your client is happy, ask them if they know anyone else with a similar problem that could use your services. It's important to ask at the right time, but you don't necessarily have to wait until the end of your work to do this. If during the course of your work together, you hear your client mention that a friend needs help or is in some similar situation, by all means, offer to reach out to them and help. Remember, selling is all about serving the people you are meant to serve. Speaking up and offering to help someone in need is your duty. You can think about it that way. And don't be shy. Some people think it can threaten a client relationship if you're asking for referrals, you might think, well, this will make me look desperate and diminish me in the eyes of my clients. But that's the wrong mindset. You deliver great value to your customers and you want more people to benefit from your talents. You should be proud to ask, whom else do you know that I could help? This can help you quickly land new clients. Here are some ways to go about doing that. You can show your generosity and gratitude. If you've ever heard the phrase, give a little, get a lot, it applies in the case of referrals. Let's say you have clients who are business owners. You could consider giving them referrals to other people, and they will likely return the favor for you one day. And remember to be grateful if they help you out, if they do give you a referral. You could send a thank you note to them. People love to help out, especially when they know you appreciate their efforts. Let's look at the process of how you teach your customers to refer you. This is the biggest improvement you can make in your referral campaigning. Many clients would love to help you, but they don't know how to succinctly present you and your services to others. Here's how you can solve that. You can give them cheat sheets with your core value proposition and a handful of client results. These could be on your website, on the About page, or the testimonial page. And these statements answer two questions. What do I do and why me? I've included an email template in the resources for this session that will help you on what to say to ask your clients for referrals. One thing that I would do as an author is if ever somebody would email me, a reader, saying, hey, I really like that book you recommended, I would say, thank you. If you had 30 seconds, could you leave a short review on my Amazon sales page? I would just leave a review to the page and I would say, you can say anything you want, but if you're not sure what to say, here's an example. And I would include a link to a review on the page that was maybe 20 or 30 words long so they knew what to write. Because sometimes reviewers would think, do I have to make it 500 or 1,000 words long? And I'll say, no. I mean, if you want to write it that long, that's great. But you could just make a 20 or 30 word review, and here's an example. Make it really, really, really easy for them to write something by giving them examples of something they could say. You could also include instructions on how to go to Yelp to give a review. Yelp is important these days. Also include a request for a referral in your email correspondence. If you have business cards, that could go on the back of your business card as well. But this is best done, I want to mention with the third one, asking them to do that is best done in the context of them emailing you some good news or a thanks. They're in a good mood, they appreciate what you've done, you give them a very simple way to return the favor, and there's a good chance they'll follow up on it. When you're looking for referrals, you want to focus on the best clients. Many business owners spread themselves too thin trying to make everyone they come in contact with over the moon happy. But naturally, you're just going to click with some people better than other people, and you can't avoid it. If you're an entrepreneur or a solo entrepreneur, you might want to think about adapting this belief and think about this in terms of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule I mentioned earlier. This also applies to you and your clients. It means that 20% of your clients will produce the highest, most outstanding referrals. They'll produce 80% of your referrals. If you sense that things weren't really clicking with some people, maybe you don't follow up on them about referrals. But if you have some people who are over the moon happy, they think that you've changed their lives, they're gushingly happy with what you've done, those are the people that you want to focus on more about how to get good referrals to other people that might be in need of your consulting service. Your biggest clients will spend more with you, they'll refer more of their clients, peers, and network to you, and become huge brand evangelists for your company. Doing all of these things is difficult. Arranging client meetings, doing follow-up, doing marketing, planning for your consulting sessions, having your consulting sessions, doing follow-up for your consulting sessions, and everything else can take a lot of time. I want to mention here, because at this stage we're starting to get our business up and going, we're getting it up and running, we're building traction, we're having more meetings, whether Skype or in person. At this stage, we need to start thinking about time management. Because if we don't get into this and think about time management, then this is where the business can run away. It's exciting to get clients, it's exciting to get people signing up, and it's easy to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way because you're so excited about it, but we have to be smart about this step so that things don't get out of hand. I want to mention a couple of things on how to structure your consulting schedule. One of the biggest problems with new coaches is that for the vast majority of us, you're still working on your old job as you're starting this. When I started, I was still working. I was still teaching English because I knew that I couldn't just jump right into this thing. First of all, I was not making money, and I never recommend somebody completely quitting their old job and jumping into consulting. I recommend taking it slow, waiting until you hit a certain threshold and you feel like your consulting business is strong enough and has enough momentum that maybe you could slowly transition out of your old job. But until you get to that point, your time is scarce as a consultant, and you need to be very intentional about how you spend it. It can take a few months for your business to get going, and you have to juggle your old job and your new job when you first begin. First of all, here's what I recommend. Try to squeeze all of your coaching into 1 day a week. This is not as hard as it sounds, and I think a lot of people won't blink too much if you say, I am available on Tuesday or I am available on Wednesday. Unless it's a really outstanding problem, I found that a lot of people won't blink at that. If you set the terms, then they'll fall into it. Now, if you say, I am available anytime you ever want, then you can spread yourself thin. Maybe in the very beginning, you do want to cast the net wide. On your Calendly schedule, you want to make yourself really available. But once you set up the mechanics of your business, you want to narrow it in. You want to cut off days on your Calendly schedule and say, I am only available on Tuesday or Wednesday in this 4-hour block. That way, you could push all of your consulting sessions there, and that way you can be a lot more effective with your time. This idea of focusing all your tasks in one time is known as batch processing. The idea comes from factory work, where the cost of setting up machinery in a factory to set up something means that if you only produce one of something, it costs as much as if you produced 100 of something. If you only made one t-shirt, it would cost as much to make 100 t-shirts because the cost isn't as much with the cotton in the t-shirt itself, but in changing over the machinery and setting up the templates and the artistic design so it can start spitting out those t-shirts. The idea is the same with consulting. It takes some setup time to get yourself in the mindset and get excited to talk to people. If you can do that all at one time, that'll save you hours and hours and hours throughout the week. Here's an example about how you can batch process your business. For example, maybe you make 4 hours available on a Tuesday. Then Wednesday is follow-up and client document writing. You're writing the follow-up documents for them after your session is over, and you just focus on that on 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. The next one is handling accounts, handling bank transfers, handling any other financial things that you have to deal with. And then on Friday is networking and outreaching to find new clients. You can do extraordinary things with time management by breaking this all down. When you're beginning, you don't have to do this 40 hours a week. You could just do your consulting business 5 or 10 hours a week. That's how it's manageable to start this, even though you haven't quit your old job. Batching works for all sorts of things. One thing that it's worked out really well for me is email. I will not check my email first thing in the morning because all it will do is distract me. There are some people who only check their email twice a day. They'll check it for 20 minutes from 12 to 12:20, and maybe 20 minutes from 4 to 4:20. I found that when I did that there were 0 times over the course of a year that it created a problem for me checking my email less. There was never a thing that required my emergency attention and was mission critical. The way I would do it in the past is I would spend hours on email. I would check it every 20 minutes. I would get distracted. I would have to change my mental gears to focus on it. Then I would get out of it, and whatever task I was doing before, I was distracted and I couldn't get back into my groove. But by batching my email, it cut out an extraordinarily large amount of time of my day. If you do this with how you handle your business, it can cut down how much time you have to spend extraordinarily. Let's look at the final step. This might seem like something that is separate from what we discussed earlier, but it's actually deeply intertwined, and that is how to set up a client contract. A client contract is critical. Yes, it's critical as a legal document, but beyond that, it's critical for setting up proper expectations with your client. If you're ambiguous in what it is you say that you will do for them, particularly in a product-based business, that could create a lot of difficulties, tensions, negative perceptions from your client, and in the worst case scenario, even legal problems. You don't want to have any of those problems. You want to get things upfront and clear right away with your client so that there's no ambiguity, no worries, and you're legally safeguarded in every single way. One of the benefits is that it provides proof of your agreement in a court of law. If a disagreement with a dissatisfied or non-paying client should ever escalate to the courtroom, you have evidence of the terms of your arrangement. Beyond legal proof, a freelance contract can also help you in tax time. It's critical to preserve your self-employment status. If the IRS or your state revenue agency questions your employment arrangements, if either agency audits you and labels you as an employee instead of a freelancer, it could cost you client work in addition to time and money you'll spend trying to petition the assessment. But if you have a documented history of client contracts, you have proof of your work as an independent contractor, and again, it makes expectations clear with your client. Let me mention some of the things that you need to include. Creating a contract isn't difficult, and in fact, you're already covering most of the terms in a verbal agreement with your client. Below are a description of the common topics that you can use to draft a contract template for your business. First, contact information. Include the name and business address, phone, email, and other relevant contact information for both you and your client. Second is the project description. In this area, detail the job or project description, including specific information on what the client is getting and what the client is not getting as a result of this contract. Even if you think it's self-explanatory, be sure to thoroughly document the agreement to prevent any confusion on either end. Third, milestone dates. Document the contract dates of service, when the contract goes into effect, and, if applicable, when the contract ends. And document all milestone dates, including when drafts or phases or completed work will be completed. Don't skip this step even if you're juggling multiple projects and concerned about locking yourself into a deadline. Instead, document buffer dates that leave yourself more than enough time to complete the work. Know how long it'll take, give yourself an extra week or two grace period, and then surprise your client by over-delivering and finishing it ahead of schedule. Rates and fees. In this section, record your rate structure for the project, which for most freelancers is either an hourly rate or a flat rate depending on the project. If you are charging an hourly rate, estimate the expected number of hours per project phase and include it in this section. Will your client cover the cost of materials, or is that worked into your fee? You need to clarify how these expenses are covered as well. And include a description of your invoicing procedures. Include when you expect payment, if it's all up front, is it in 2 lump sums, is it once every other week, is it monthly, and how or if penalties apply if your client delivers payment late or not at all. Ownership, cancellation, or redos. It's sometimes overlooked but equally important as the other sections of your contract. It's a statement of ownership rights. Your contract should explicitly say who owns what rights, copyrights, patents on the work. This is available in more detail on business.gov, but I know as a rule of shorthand that if you don't specify in a contract who owns intellectual property, by default it stays with the creator. I've had freelancers write documents for me in the past, and I specified in the contract that I retain complete intellectual rights over it when I get it from them. Include in the contract that your client has complete intellectual rights over whatever it is you give to them, so they have soundness of mind that there won't be any weird thing that you try to do with follow-up of trying to claim that you actually own that thing later on. Be sure to include a cancellation clause in your contract that explains the procedure if your client cancels. This should include your compensation and ownership right for any unfinished work. And what if your client is unsatisfied with your work or wants you to redo a portion of it? Include a section in your contract on your revision policy. A lot of times authors will have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 write-overs, but you can't let it go on forever. You have to stop at some point, and here you need to specify that. Signatures. When you and your client are satisfied with the terms of the contract, both parties must sign the contract to make it legally binding. I want to show you exactly what this process was like for me. When I wrote my first contract for a client, I was not clear on the terms. I was not clear on the deliverables. I had a lot of ambiguous language. And this was a big problem because my client didn't know what they were getting, and if they let their imagination fill in the blanks, my expectations and his could have been out of whack, and it could have made all sorts of problems. The way I solved this is I went to a business professional and I showed it to her and asked, "Is this okay?" She tore it apart completely and said, "Okay, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem." And I had to completely work it. I had to tighten up my language a lot and get much clearer on what was going on. I want to show you the differences between these two contracts I made, the before and the after. The first was one I did by myself. The second one was with help that had much tighter language. And I want to point out how these two were different so it can save yourself problems that come along when you are trying to make your own contract. Here we are at the draft of a book contract. I want to get in detail with this because this is one I made with a client that I ended up not using because I worked with another professional who really tore into it and told me that there's a lot of mistakes here, there's a lot of ambiguity, and if you give it to a client, you could be opening yourself up for a world of hurt because expectations aren't clear. You might expect one thing, he'll expect another thing, and this could create all sorts of tensions down the road that if right up front you're very clear about your expectations, you're going to save yourself a lot of problems. So let me show you the original draft of a contract I made with a client, Steve Stevens, not his real name. What I was doing here was basically Steve had a Microsoft Word document and he wanted me to format that into something that could go on Amazon self-publishing, and then he wanted me to do the marketing for the book when it was released. So in the project description, I just say I'm going to do the formatting, marketing, and translating a book focused on blah, blah, blah. But I didn't say anything specific about implementing a book launch that will make the potential market aware of the book's availability. And right off the bat, I'm not being as direct as I should be. Objectives, those are actually okay. But here's where the problems get in. Let's get into the main part. Here you see I have work description, deliverables, and fees, and I did do it right here because these three columns are very helpful in making your actions clear. Work description is what it is that I'll actually be doing, but he doesn't care what I'll be doing, he cares what he'll get. And that comes in the deliverables, showing what is the result of these actions and then how much it costs. So it is good to have these three columns. My big mistake was in my work description, I was very unclear what I was talking about. I said, I'll take a book manuscript and create an ebook in print-on-demand format, but what does that include? Does that include an ISBN number? Does that include the jacket description? Does that include the description that'll go on the Amazon website? I didn't say. Design a professional ebook cover. Is that for both the ebook or is that also for print-on-demand too? Get in touch with Steve's contacts to get enough reviews. How many? 2, 5, 10, 20? What if Steve expects 50 and I know that the industry standard is 5? Big problem. Design a targeted marketing campaign. What does that mean? For me, does that just mean release a press release, or am I going to literally put him on Oprah to talk about his book? Facilitate translations to foreign languages. I ended up taking this out of the contract because I realized that it went too far beyond the scope of what a project like this would be. And determine appropriate foreign markets and platforms on which to publish the book. That, again, is just way too ambiguous. Anything that is approaching that level of ambiguity needs to be heavily modified or taken out. And then down here, I mentioned my information, approval, and I have a little place for signatures. I'll show you in a second a website you can go to that will create a contract where you can put in signatures and include all the legalese that will look more professional than this, so you're not just creating Microsoft Word documents. But anyway, I want to show you an updated version of this contract and how I tweaked it to be much more precise in my language. Let me go over to that right now. Okay, here's an updated version of the contract and the project description. I say format for publication, a print and ebook. Same thing as before. But this, now I add, create and implement a 1-month book launch strategy that will make the potential market aware of the book's availability and create interest in buying it. Okay, so I'm already being a lot more specific. Here, let me show you all the stuff I added to the work description. I have 2 different sections. I have the book production section and I have the marketing strategy and implementation section. Work includes completion of these book production processes, creation of industry standard formatting title and subtitle, creation and collection of additional publication content, endorsements, copyright, licensing notice, forward, author bio. So I'm very specific about what's actually going to go into the book formatting. I tell him that I'll give 3 options for the cover design. He'll choose one. The book size, does he want 5x8? Does he want 6x9? Does he want white paper? Does he want cream colored? book print and e-production, information created for Amazon author page, setup of Amazon distribution channels. And then the deliverables are very straightforward, just the finished book product on ebook and print on demand version, a cover design, title creation, and a create and implemented book launch into the American market. Fees are mostly the same. I say that $375 payable once signing of agreement, $375 upon approval of the final deliverable. That type of thing is pretty customary for smaller projects. For a much larger project, you might want to break it up into monthly payments or bi-monthly, whatever you think is appropriate. And here, this is the marketing strategy where I get much more specific than my first contract. The pre-launch, I work with contacts provided by him, send pre-publication reviews to potential reviewers. I put 10 reviews on Amazon book sales page by using early reviewers, so there's not a misunderstanding whether it's 5 or 50 people. Then I tell them exactly how I will launch. I'll feature the book on search engines and I'll list it on social media sites. I'll feature it on targeted email lists that reaches tens of thousands of readers. And in other correspondence, I specify what these are. There are 3 different book sites, but I should have mentioned that here. And I create a press release that Robert can use on his contacts list for further exposure of the book. Okay, so that is a much more descriptive contract, and really, you can't be too descriptive. I would recommend, as you're creating it with your client, I'll include this template with the materials for this session, but include a friend that maybe works in accounting or even better law, or someone that deals with legalese and they understand the importance of a finely tuned contract, just so they can look it over and think, okay, you need to be more clear here, here's a pitfall here, just to save yourself some of the headaches that can appear down the road. There we are, and I want to show you one other thing. I want to show you a site online that will take your contract to the next level, include all of the legalese and all of the things that you need that will help you out immensely as you're trying to design your own business contract. This is a free resource called hellobonsai.com. So here we are at hellobonsai.com. This website is great because it simplifies a lot of the complexities that come with creating a contract. In the past, I would find contract templates online and fill in my own information, but then you would still have to sign it. That could mean printing it off and signing it and scanning it. Or there are other websites like HelloSign where you can insert a signature that do count as legally valid, but it's still really clunky, and then you have to handle things like payments. Do you do a bank transfer? Does somebody send you a check? Well, Hello Bonsai is great because you input information, it creates a contract that has all the lawyerese that most of us mere mortals don't understand, but it also has an escrow account. That means that you agree to a payment term and then your client puts the payment in escrow. When the job is completed, according to his or her satisfaction, then it's released. This is very important because even if you're dealing with someone who seems to be reputable, a lot of times private contractors have been burned before where the client didn't give the payment promptly or on time. This resolves a lot of those issues. Once you see that the client has put the money in escrow, then you can go forward. So let me just show you how to use Hello Bonsai. You'll go here to sign up. So you'll sign up for the service. You can go ahead and do that. I'll just jump to the next thing off screen. Here is the screen that you'll come to. This is your dashboard when you have signed up for a Hello Bonsai account. We want to create a new project, a new contract. I want to show you how this process works. We have some different options here. Let's click on development. So we're going to go through this process, enter your info, review and sign, and then send to client. Here, you click your information and you give the basic information, who you are. So I'll type this in. My name is Scott Rank. My email is .com. I work through a company. I do have an LLC. But if you don't have one, that's fine. You can just click off of this. My title at the company is owner. I am in the state of, put your state here, Kansas for me. And the name of the company, this depends. If your client does have an LLC, put it here. If not, just put the name. If your client is an individual, enter John Smith. So our client will be John Smith. Oh. Okay, what am I being hired to do? Here I'm going to enter the information. Let's say we're doing a book project with this person, and I will mention the plans for formatting, marketing, and translating a book. Let's say that I agreed on an amount with my client of $10,000, for example. Here, you can specify how much the client has to make as a deposit, which I do recommend a deposit on a large project of this nature. Some people will want to have half of it up front. Others will have a smaller amount, and they'll just want regular invoicing every 2 weeks, every month. It's really according to how much you want to do it, and it really depends on how big the project is. Let's say for a $10,000 one, I do want $1,000 as a deposit, and then I want, for the remaining amount, I'll invoice them every 2 weeks, and I can choose what that is through a different system, through the escrow. Okay, and then I can determine when the contract will begin and end. I can make that any date I want to. Let's say I want to kick that out to 2 months. And if the client wants to end, written notice must be sent 7 days in advance. Expense options, you can specify what you want to do here, and completion options. This is important. Once the work is done, the client will own all the intellectual property. This is a thing that when people leave out of a contract, it can create weird headaches if the creator wants to come around later and make problems. So it gives your client a certain peace of mind. And this, once the work is completed, I will not provide additional support. You are a professional, you are paid for your work, and we love our clients, but we are not their eternal advisors for the rest of our lives. So make sure to include that. Then you just click on Create Contract. And there it is. This is the generic text of the contract. Here, the two parties can sign below yourself and then Mr. John Smith. Then click Next. The terms you entered are highlighted below. And if you do need to edit anything, you can do that. And once it's done, then you click on Sign Contract. Go to your inbox, and then there you'll find the contract and you can go and sign it. And Hello Bonsai can also handle escrow stuff too, to handle the payments, and it is very nice. So to make contracts simpler, I recommend here using Hello Bonsai. There we are. These are the main things I wanted to cover in the session. Now, as I mentioned earlier on how you lead a consulting session, I want to get into action steps. The first thing is the best way to improve as a consultant is to practice. If you have the opportunity, I want you to do a practice consultation with a friend, or better yet, a customer. Offer to do a free session with someone so you can get into the rhythm of what it's like to ask targeted questions, lead the session, provide value, know when to listen, know when to provide information dumps, know when to ask targeted questions. This only comes about by experience, so test it out with somebody. Second, create a consulting package list of 5 to 10 lessons. Put things on the services section of your website of sample things that you can go over with your client if they decide to buy a package of coaching sessions with you. Third, this one is very easy. Set up an account at Hello Bonsai. This will take about 30 seconds, but it'll get you into the rhythm where you have your resource on file of what you will use when you're setting up contracts with your clients. The resources for the session that are available as PDF documents. First, a questions list for consulting sessions, about 25 of the best questions to ask. Second, an email template for asking client recommendations from your clients in order that they may refer other people. I have an email that you can send to them. Third, sample 10-session package. These are things that I would put on my website of things that clients could choose if they were doing a one-on-one coaching session with me. Hopefully this will give you ideas on what you can put on your website. And last, a sample contract. This is a sample contract that I put together in Microsoft Word. It's perfectly good. It's legally firm. But if you go through Hello Bonsai and input the exact same information that I have in that contract, it will fill out with all the legalese and the language that will leave you absolutely airtight should you ever be involved in a legal situation. Well, that's all I have for this session. Let's get into the questions. Is there anything about any of this that was unclear or you want me to expound upon or go into greater detail? Please let me know and I would be happy to answer you.